I don't remember when I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker. Sometimes I think, looking back, that it was a really bad decision. Filmmaking, even in the world of advertising, leave aside movie making, is a hard competitive business, which only has a space for very few people. So yeah, probably a bad decision, but not one that I regret, ever. Why? Because I love it. And every time I've wanted to quit, my heart has said no. Today we talk about following your heart. Welcome to The Brown Box, a podcast in which I explore the good, the bad, and the crazy that make up the country I love, India. This episode of the podcast is brought to you in collaboration with eShe. eShe is an independent women's magazine and blog based in New Delhi that amplifies women's voices and stories about our shared humanity.
We somehow don't teach our girls as much about finance, as much about money. You know, it's how when you don't talk to your kids about sex, you somewhere tell them it's a dirty word.
If you go through setbacks in life, either you can become better or you can become bitter. And thankfully, I chose to be a better human being.
Today I speak to two amazing women, very successful women, who got to where they are by following their hearts. The journey was not always, well, actually never straight. The heart tends to meander a little bit for sure. But following their hearts has allowed them, as it has me, to be passionate, joyful, and excited about what the rest of the world refers to as work. Tanu Ganguly was a digital and broadcast media senior executive at NDTV for 18 years, the editor of NDTV Food. She left this lucrative job, the only company she had ever worked for, to set up her own company, Mishry, a food review website that taps into the experience and knowledge of women, housewives, mothers, grandmothers, and everyone in between to review all kinds of products in the cooking and dining space. So from spices, sauces, dairy products, staples, rice, atta, dal, they have an opinion about everything. Then we speak to Suparnaa Chadda, a media personality and social entrepreneur who founded the SABERA Awards with the purpose of highlighting corporates and individuals who are creating positive impact in the world. Suparnaa has more than 2 decades of experience in media, different types of media, but has made a conscious decision to focus on the positive narrative and move away from sensationalism. Let's begin with Suparnaa as she speaks about the importance of passion in her life.
A lot of the work which I have done throughout my career graph and also personally stems from a place of passion, a place of being able to do the right thing.
Suparnaa's journey to being the social and development advocate she is today began with a confluence of events that put her in Kashmir during the devastating earthquake of 2005.
I remember how this happened was that I was hosting a show on Radio City. So as part of that series, I did have the opportunity to also interview Matthew Cherian. He was, at that point in time, the CEO of HelpAge India. And there was this major earthquake which, had shattered Uri, specifically on the Indian side of the border. The damage was much larger on the Pakistan side. But what Matthew shared with me was that there is complete media apathy as far as Kashmir is concerned. And nobody's really covering that earthquake that has wreaked havoc in people's lives. You know, there are people who have been buried for innumerable number of days. There are women, who don't know whether their husbands are back, where their children are. And besides the physical, devastation, there is also a huge amount of emotional trauma to the already traumatized lot.
To put this story in perspective, here are some notes which I found on Wikipedia. Most of the devastation hit North Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Pakistani government's official death toll as of November 2005 stood at 87,350, although it was estimated that the death toll could reach 100,000. Approximately 138,000 were injured and over 3.5 million people rendered homeless. According to government figures, 19,000 children died in the earthquake, most of them in widespread collapses of school buildings. As Saturday is normally a school day in the region, most students were at school when the earthquake hit. Many were buried under collapsed school buildings. Many people were also trapped in their homes because it was a month of Ramadan, and most people were taking a nap after their pre-dawn meal and didn't have time to escape. This was the situation that Suparnaa found herself in the middle of. She continues, explaining to me that she felt that she had to do something.
Now, after that interview, it had me thinking, and I was like, even though I don't have any experience whatsoever in filmmaking, in documentary filmmaking, but like I said, there was something that he ignited within me, saying that what is it that I can do, as part of the media fraternity? How can I contribute rather than just sitting back and saying that things are not happening and that's not correct? So just, a decision of, what can I say, impulsive decision, so to speak. And I said, okay, I'm going to take a camera person and I'm going to film. And I had no clue how I'm going to do it. And how I'm going to distribute the film, how am I going to edit the film, none of that. I had no know-how whatsoever, except for an honest intention. And as luck would have it, I expressed this to Mr. Cherian, saying that I would like to do my bit. And he said, Suparnaa, we are going to host a disaster management workshop in Srinagar for 3 days. I'm going to invite you to that. And it will help you in creating this documentary, because where we are going to take you, or where the most affected lot is, there you cannot be seen without proper army's permission, because it's the most militarized zone. There are shoot at sight orders, and militarized zone not only in India but the world's most militarized zone. And you can't be seen there, let alone have a camera person and a camera recording what's happening there. So I grabbed onto that opportunity and I said, okay. And that's how this documentary came into being. It's interesting again that once you have made up your mind, and this has repeatedly happened to me over my course of career, is that when you have the intent in place, everything else is just a matter of time, how it falls into place. It was my first plunge into doing what I want to do when my heart called out to it.
Suparnaa makes it sound so simple, so easy, but making that documentary would have been challenging even for a seasoned journalist to handle. But this big giant step that she took with so much courage, would begin the journey to her becoming the social entrepreneur she is today. Now let's hear from Tanu. Tanu had to make a tough decision at a very young age to follow her heart, even when those dearest to her didn't agree with her choices.
So I joined NDTV when I was 19. And I remember my dad was really upset that I wasn't thinking of, and I was still graduating, right? I was still in my first or second year. And way back, this is 99, NDTV still used to hire people who were still undergrads. Now, of course, the rule is that you have to be at least a graduate. But so when I got this opportunity, and I was fascinated, that there would be a newsroom, and I was helping news reach people faster and all of those things. And my dad, who was from the army and still serving at that point, was not very happy that I wasn't thinking of further education. So I remember he did not talk to me for quite a number of days. And I had to get my mom to convince him that, because I I said, I am going to do it. So of course he came around, and but yeah, NDTV was the only place I've ever worked in, to be honest. And I think that the fact that, and you are from a production background, there is a whole lot of entrepreneurship that you need to do as a producer. Half the things are falling apart. You have very strict timelines to keep. There is a periodicity, in fact, to your timelines, right? You're on a weekly show or a monthly or a daily. So you learn to go with the flow. You sometimes learn how to wing it. You sometimes have a whole lot of preparation that goes into it, both ways, always. And I think all of that comes into when you start something of your own, and really understand how it all really works. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's very different. They're vastly different mindsets, actually, you know. So I feel that my years growing up in an army background, with an army background, and then NDTV sort of really helped shape how I think now.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing. And no, I don't say that sarcastically. I read this once and it really stuck with me. Hindsight is the most fertile source of insight. Suparna articulates this really well.
So it's very interesting. When you look back, you feel that it was a jigsaw puzzle that came together at the right place at the right time. But when you're going through it, it just feels like there are random stimuli coming towards you, and how are you going to react to all of those and make the best of it? So there wasn't any, if you were to ask me, what is your, why are you going on this trajectory, or what is the plan? There was no concrete plan as such. Media, of course, and radio has been my first love. I enjoyed what I did. Through that itself, avenues started to open up. Avenues that, again, that would tug or call to me. For example, I, through one of the conferences, met this lady who was based in Netherlands, in Amsterdam. She used to produce a show called Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives was a radio show that mapped a day in the life of people doing the same job around the world. For example, someone working in McDonald's in Nigeria, Brazil, and India. Suparna did a few shows for them as their India correspondent, and one of these stories would leave a huge impact on her.
And I did a few stories as their India correspondent. And through that, I was also exposed to this area in the outskirts of Delhi, which was Rithala. I was asked to go and cover, and I had no clue about what are human development stories, and I'm being very honest about this. I was just thrown. I actually kind of jump into the deep end of the pool and learn how to swim. Again, one small incident really moved me. There was this lady there, and she was a rag picker. She was a middle-aged lady, and she had two sons who were also rag pickers. And they were living in this, a shanty kind of a thing with a blue tarp on top. Obviously, there's nothing concrete. And she invited me inside that blue tarp, and one had to bend and go inside the tent. There was nothing inside. She had her shawl hung up on a nail, and she picked that shawl up and she put it on the ground for me to sit on it, because as though I am her guest and making me sit there, offered me a glass of water. And I asked her, I said, how do you manage? What is your source of income now that you have shifted from there, from the Yamuna Pushta area, as a street vendor or so? So I asked her in Hindi, I said, Aapka pura ho jata hai, sab kaisa chalta hai? So she gave me, हाँ, हमारा सब पूरा हो जाता है. You know, that answer of hers made me feel so small. That somebody who has nothing, literally, is telling me that my life is complete, you know. So that also kind of left an indelible mark on my, my being. And rather than being in self-pity or in a victimhood or saying life has not been kind to me or whatever other excuses that we make as human beings, it became so important to highlight issues of people who are actually going through so much in life.
You can hear the emotion in Suparnaa's voice, even after all these years when she tells the story. And it amazes me that the dignity of this woman could influence Suparnaa so much that she would dedicate her life to being a journalist who was committed on focusing on the positive and refusing to focus on the victim narrative and sensationalism. Tanu had a more steady, consistent influence on her life, one that many of us have, but few of us decide to make a career out of: food.
I was involved with food in NDTV till the time I quit, which was 2019, January. So for those 12 years, I was either doing food programming or when I left, I was the editor for NDTV's food website, NDTV Food. So I think by then my love for doing food was, I think it couldn't be stronger. And I don't think I would have thought of doing anything of my own if it wasn't food, if it wasn't related to food. For me, the lens that I view food from is that it's everything. Especially in India, you cannot think of a celebration or a morning or anything without it having its own food connect, right? Whether it's happy making food, whether it's food that you eat because you're remembering someone, whether it is, one of my favorite activities is to slyly observe people when they are having a meal. And if you do that, whether it's at home or if you watch a group of people eating in a restaurant, their interpersonal conversations, who's speaking more, who's sitting where, what kind of crockery, cutlery. So food it's evocative, it's communication, it's so much more. And ultimately, it's also extremely reference based. It's probably the only thing that you never, it's the reason why we keep asking our mums. Yeah, I know it's stereotypical, but the reason you also ask your mums about everything food related is because you trust her opinion, right? It's not a gadget, it's not an automobile that you're thinking of buying. So when Mishry as an idea came to me, I liked it because we were taking the largest community in the world of foodies and tying it to the idea of a referral system, of something where I trust your opinion and therefore I will make that decision. So for me, I think it was the other way around. I wouldn't have done something, or I wouldn't have taken that step of leaving a comfortable job to do something of my own if it wasn't to do with food.
I guess this is what happens when you follow your heart, right? It's hard to think about the logic, the question of, will I make money if you love something? It's just hard to say no to your heart. When I was a model, I would look at photographers, filmmakers, and I wanted their job. It just seemed more engaging, challenging, fun. Crazy, right? I mean, who doesn't think that modeling is fun? And then when I made that leap and I followed my heart, I remember my first day on a film set. I was doing a meaningless job. I was folding costumes. Yes, that was my first job. And I loved it. I felt like this was the beginning of something great. This is where I belonged. And that's been my life ever since. from directing ad films to producing a travel show and now creating a podcast. I feel like my heart still lights up when I'm doing what the world refers to as work. And of course it's tough, it's challenging at times. But you know what? When I don't have work, when I'm not able to do this, which happened quite a lot in this last year of the pandemic, I am just miserable. This is what my heart desires, and I am so grateful that I listened and that I followed my heart. I really love these words from Suparnaa.
But I have known this in my experience, that if the intent is right and your heart is in the right place, everything else falls around it. You are given an opportunity not only to survive but to thrive and prosper. And it is maybe somewhere the conspiracy of the universe also, I feel, because if the intent is right, then the universe also wants, I totally believe in that, in the laws of the universe. They will do everything possible, whoever those forces and entities are, for you to be able to walk the path that you have chosen. Because ultimately, we are all also instruments to be able to deliver good.
I really love that. What a great way to end this podcast. But before we go, as always, I ask both Suparnaa and Tanu what they are most passionate about at this moment. Suparnaa shares her vision for SABERA.
And as now SABERA is evolving, it is not just necessarily only about media and development issues, but it's almost like a tripartite bridge now between the nonprofit, the people who are defining policies in the government, and the corporates, bringing these three together and amplifying the good work which is happening to help catalyze sustainable development.
And I asked Tanu what she is most passionate about at this point in her life.
It has to be Mishry. It has to be Mishry. Mishry is, you know what Mishry is? In Hindi, Mishry is the little white sugar that you have after a meal at a restaurant or at home. And it sort of completes the entire meal, right? It's the last full stop you need at the end of the sentence, and because otherwise it doesn't work. For us, we say that our reviews will make your buying decision so much better. Your decisions will be better because you will be saving money. Read a review before you buy, especially things that you get into your kitchen, especially things that have a direct impact on your pocket, on your health. So be kind to all of these things and go and log on to mishry.com now.
You can find more about Tanu and Suparnaa in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have stories about following your heart, please do share them with us. We would love to hear your stories and your opinion about the show.